Well, thanks, Joe, for sitting with me.
Anytime.
I was going through the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks, and I noticed that I need to be teaching the students this standard here about identifying structures in a plant and the responsibility of each part of that structure. And so I kind of started off, this is the first time they've seen it. They don't have this in 4th grade in the math curriculum, so I needed some way to introduce it to them and then somehow get it to stick and stay with them, because this is a concept that does move on with them into the middle school. So
you broke down the standard into a learning target?
yes, I've come up with like this progression of lessons that will end with a summative assessment, but throughout the way I've got, different formative assessments that will kind of take me to that point. And the whole time we're focused on this one learning target of I can identify the parts of an apple flower and describe their functions. And so I've focused on the apple flower because it's pretty visual. It shows the male and the female parts nicely. And so I've started yesterday talking with the students. Again, this is the first time they've seen it. So we went with a diagram and
did any of them have any prior knowledge to it? Did anybody recognize any of the parts of the flower, or was everybody pretty much
basics? Like they could say petal or they could say stem. As much as the functions, though, as to like, well, what's the importance of a petal on a flower? We couldn't really get to that part. Stem, they were pretty good at. They used their kind of logical reasoning about the water, but
nothing about the reproduction.
No reproduction, nope. And so I went through with them each part, and we labeled it together, and we looked at a model flower, and then talked about the functions of each. And as a form of assessment, I asked them to color each part a different color to see if they were able to kind of separate one part from another, a male part from a female part. And so if we look at this student, it shows that, she realized the stigma is different from the style, the anther is different from the filament, indicated by the different colors. But then I looked at this student and a number of others, and I found the same mistake, that all of these kind of clustered parts here were the same color. And so tomorrow, when I progress into the next lesson, I kind of want to see if, did this student just not understand my directions, different color for a different part, or are they really thinking this is the same part?
Do you think some of the students it would have been easier for them if they just had a certain color to pick for each one?
Maybe that would have been a good way to differentiate, kind of assign some kids.
Because some kids need to see it like an example or a model.
I had a model of my own, but uncolored, so maybe I should look into color coding it next time.
Okay.
But as for tomorrow, it kind of does come out somewhat color coded. We're going to be building 3D flowers so that we talk about each and every part, and it's literally separate for them. And so I'm hoping that this can somehow show me that these students, it was a coloring error or a direction error more so than a kind of knowledge error.
So yours is it's really nice, but what happens if you have a kid who has difficulty with, say putting it together, it might be a little bit wrinkled? How are you going to assess the formative assessment that they have, the flower actually looks, it's supposed to be, is built the way it should be built?
We are actually going to build it together, so each student gets a prepackaged bag with each part. And step by step we're going to go through, again, because this is the first time, that they've got this knowledge, and so I don't expect them to have it all in one day. But so they're going to go through each step with me as to how to build it. But if I do notice, some fine motor issues, I can go around with them, because I do anticipate that with some of the students.
Once it's built, then where are you going to go from there?
Well, I've decided that perhaps a Simon Says game could be fun. Where each student, after we've talked about each part, and we're going to talk as we go through building it, this is the stem, what does the stem do? So we're kind of getting a review, pulling from the background knowledge that they got from the day before. And then hopefully, and then we're gonna have note cards with each part on it, no function.
Okay.
And I'm going to have a model plant for them that looks very similar to the one that they just built with me. This will be out on their desk as a visual reference for them. I'm thinking, and let me know what you think, but that some students might need to have out this as well to make the connection, to be able to look at this
Yeah, just to be
and
able to see it.
this,
For
to-
some students, they most likely they'll probably use it.
to play the
Yeah.
game, yeah.
And
So
then
I
you're
was-
gonna have the cards spread out on the table.
Right, so they have their cards spread out on their desks, and they'd be asked to stand behind the desk in the same Simon Says rules
Okay.
apply. So if I said, I think I'm going to play 2 separate games, one to look at just the parts,
Okay.
and one to look at the functions of the parts,
Okay.
to kind of gauge where each student is, because it's going to be a good visual for me to have them. If they're sitting, I realize that was a part that they missed. If they're standing, we're still getting
Okay.
it. Kind of how quickly do I lose a student?
Okay. So a lot of observation.
A lot of observation, yeah. And so I would say something like, Simon says anther, Simon says the part that produces the pollen. And so I'd be holding the anther on a much larger model, but again, that looks very similar to
Right.
this one. And they would have to visually search out their card, hold up
Okay.
anther.
All right.
If not, they would take a seat. Once a student sits, we would again say, right, anther, that was the correct response. Everybody that had anther, great job, and move on to another one. And so then kind of move through the parts until we have a Simon Says winner.
Okay.
And then
What about the
transition
student who
to-
continues to maybe always has the right answer or never has the right answer? What are you going to do with those?
I'm trying
kids.
to gauge from like going back to my I can statement. I really need everybody to be at the point where they do know the parts and they do know the function. So for those that are getting the parts, are getting the function the whole time, that's an indicator to me that they've met that learning target and that perhaps in my next lesson, I'm going to have to find a way to push them.
Okay.
So I kind of have to gauge, you know, can I take them to another step in this?
Right.
So from transitioning from the parts, we would transition to a, you know, function assessment where I would say, Simon says the female reproductive part. And so I would hope to see them hold up the pistol card,
Right.
sort of thing. And again, when those students go out, kind of redirecting them back to their parts of the flower. When you hear that being called, search it out on your, so that they're still getting this support.
Right. And they can still see success as well.
Right.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that.
And so then I've created some exit slips for them. So we're going to play Ticket to Leave at the end, where I have a variety of questions based on things that we've taken away from this lesson on the first day
Okay.
and this lesson here today. Kind of a variety of them. So they're going to reach into the bag, pull out a question, and then I'll have some sort of written response from them as well to see if they've you know, made this connection and kind of met that learning target for the day.
How did you come up with the questions? Like, what did you use for questions? Are they like tiered, or are they all just
There
knowledge
is,
questions?
they're
Basic,
directly
just
related
knowledge.
back to my target. So some may ask, like, name 2 male parts of the flower and tell what they do. So again, part of the flower, part of their function, back to that learning target. And I've made sure that I did put that learning target on the paper for them, so that they're always reminded as to, you know, why we're doing this, really. And so then hopefully maybe you could come back and we could sit down together
talk.
and go over what we saw here, because I do realize that, you know, with this demographics, there are going to be some students that are still not meeting that target today, others that are. So I'm going to need to look for ways to, you know, kind of push the ones to the next level
Right.
that do get it and really support the ones that haven't got it yet.
Yeah, because some will be able to have the visual, be able to name the parts,
Right.
but then they're not going to know what their functions are.
Right. And so I really want to get them all to this summative assessment that I have,
Okay.
where they will be labeling the parts of the flower and their functions, you know, without any sort of visual support, so that I can see that they have met, you know, this outcome. And I also have an open response that will go with it as my summative assessment.
Good.
So I need to get them all there. So
Yeah.
I hope I can get your feedback on this middle ground to kind of see where
Sure.
to push them.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good.
Today we're going to continue working with our same I can statement. The other day we had worked together for the very first time looking at parts of the flower and their functions. And so today we're going to do the same I can statement. We're working our way towards this goal. So hopefully by the end of the week we'll all be able to say I can identify the parts of the flower and the functions that go with them. So we're going to start just by a quick review of what we had done the other day, and then we're going to work our way into building a tissue paper flower that has all of the parts on it. And we'll go slow since we haven't had a lot of experience with the flower yet about what each part is and what each part does. So the part and the function. And then we'll get to play a fun Simon Says game where you've got your note cards all set up from last time, and we're going to just play Simon Says, the traditional game where I say a part and you'd have to hold it up, or I touch a part and say the function and you'll have to hold the card up, and we're just going to go through, have some fun so that we can get some more repetition, hearing the parts, hearing the function, and then we'll have a quick little exit slip that might have 1 or 2 questions on it, and you guys can head out after that. Sound good? Awesome. All right, so we're going to start with our quick review. I had asked you to fill out the parts of the flower and their function, and then color each part a different color. And so the other day, I know we had gone over what each part was. You got to choose the color that it was, and I did get to see everybody. So I asked you to bring it today kind of as a reference. So if you feel at some point you need to look at your paper, that's okay, because we just learned this. So you're going to use this. I know some of you chose not to have it because you think you've already got it. So excellent. If you don't need to use it, that's totally fine. Okay? All right, so we're going to start building our tissue paper flower, going part by part. So I've already pre-bagged for you all of the parts that we're going to need. So if you can just hang on while we pass these up. All right, so let's start with the base of our flower. What in here do you think is going to be our stem? What do you think, Shelby?
The longer pipe cleaner.
The long green pipe cleaner, right? And what's the importance of a stem in a flower? Why do we have stems on our flowers, Jess?
It keeps the flower like standing up.
Right, it's kind of like the backbone of the flower, keeps it standing up tall, facing towards the sun, right? There's also something else it does, because it's going to be in the ground. There's something in the ground that we need to get up to the top of the flower. What do you think, Sylvia?
The roots.
It has the roots come from the bottom of it. What's so good about that?
It sucks the water. It like absorbs.
Ooh, good word. It absorbs the water, right? And it'll travel up through the stem like it's the straw of the flower, sucking that water right to the top to where the petals are, right? Awesome. So we're going to start with our stem, and then we're going to put on the female parts of the flower first. What do you think the female parts of the flower are called? Do you remember?
The style.
The style is part of it. That's going to be the base of it, kind of like the stem of the female part, and there's going to be a top to it.
The stigma.
The stigma, right, on the top. And together, we call that the female part, but it has its own special name. Do Do you remember?
Pistol? No. Yeah.
The pistil, good job. So if we look here at our awesome diagram, remember this is kind of what we would see on the flower. And then the diagram has been cut open for us, or this model has been cut open so we can see the inside. So we're looking here at our stigma that leads down to our style, and together this whole orange part we call our pistil, and that's the female part of the plant. Because what do we know about a perfect and complete plant? It has 2 parts to it. What 2 parts? What do you think, Jess?
The male part and female.
Yeah, isn't that nuts? It has a male and a female part. So we're gonna start looking at the female part. In your bag you have 2 pipe cleaners that are the same color. So if you could take out the ones that are the same color, and there's only 2 of them, everybody's got purple ones, we're gonna put those at the top of our stem, because that's where we'd find them. So if you just wanna take your pipe cleaner and wrap a little bit of it around, it's okay if this part looks messy, because it's gonna get covered up. So we're just gonna wrap both of them around.
So is this the male part?
This is the female part. Yep. Female part. Our pistil. And so Nick and Khalees had said that our pistil, that female part, has a base to it, the style, and a top to it, the stigma. So I've got to make my flower have both this base, like the stem, and a top part right here, this little nub that we see. So we're gonna roll it down so that it has 2 parts to it now, just like this one. So we've got that top little round part, our stigma, that goes down to the base, our style. So we had our chance to kind of talk about each part piece by piece, right? Looking at our male part, the stamen, our female parts, pistil, our colored part, petal, you guys are good, the green part, sepal, and hidden inside there, if we were to chop that open, we've got our ovary, and inside that, ovule. Awesome. All right, you sound like you're ready to play some Simon Says. What do you think? Yeah? Okay. So the rules for Simon Says are the same. If you look up here, we're going to talk first, we'll play a game of just the parts, and then we'll talk about the functions and play a game with that one. Because remember, our goal is to be able to learn not just the parts, but the functions too, what they do, right? All right, so what I'm gonna do is use my model flower here, and for the part game of Simon Says, I'm gonna say, Simon says, and I'd touch a part, and what you're going to do with those note cards that you have from the other day is hold up the card that matches that part. So if I said, Simon Says, Khalees has got it. He already found it. He's holding up petal. So I would know, oh, Khalees has got it, okay? So what you're gonna do is, girls have already got a good strategy back there, and Larry, you're gonna lay out your card so that you can see each and every name really quickly. You can have out your flower sheet as a reference, but judging from our conversation, I'd say some of us don't even need it. They're awesome. You can also look at your tissue paper flower and think, okay, when she was touching white, or when we were building white, she was touching this part, and kind of use your tissue paper flower to help you remember too, okay? So Simon Says requires us to stand up, because when we're out, we're gonna have to sit down. So stand up right behind your chair. Get ready for some fierce competition. Get your fingers ready to grab those cards fast. All right, you think you're ready? So we're focusing on the parts first. So we're not going to talk about the functions just yet. Nick looks like he's like, okay, it's set up this way. He's into this. All right, here we go. Simon says, excellent. But Vera and Anna and Sylvia, you've got to sit. I was touching the what? The anther, right. All right, get your spots ready again. I'm just referring to my chart here, gonna figure out where we are. I don't want to skip any parts. I want to make sure we learn them all. Okay. Next part. Can everybody see it if I pull it out like this? Yeah? Perfect. All right. If you're seated, go ahead and continue to play while seated because you want to get that repetition because remember, we want to all be able to say this by the end of the week, okay? All right. Simon says, everybody's got it. That's the sepal. Excellent. All right, next up, Simon says the tippity top, just the top. Excellent. Not so confident, but you should be. The what? Stigma. Stigma. You got it. Simon says the base here. Just the base. You knew that one. Larry and Talisia, you've got to sit. You were thinking base, but you were thinking the female base. This is the male base called the filament. Right. Oh, thank you. Okay, and next up we've got the white part there. The white part.
The whole white part?
The whole part, not what's inside it, what's around. Think you know, Anna? Everybody's out because what didn't I say? Simon says! But I was pointing to the ovary. Excellent. Well, that just means we have to play again. All right, I'm going to say like, Simon says the part that produces the pollen. What would you do?
Oh yeah.
Excellent, you all got it. It's the anther. So I'm going to be calling out the functions, what it does, and you're going to be holding up the part that it matches, okay? All right, here we go. Simon says the part responsible for photosynthesis because it's green. The part that's responsible for photosynthesis because it's green. I did say Simon says, don't worry. I was just repeating. We've got the what? Sepal. So Vera, you're out. Simon says the female part of the flower. All of it together, the female part of the flower.
All of it?
all of it together. Yep, when I talk about the female part, I'm saying the
Pistol.
pistol. You got it. If I said, Simon says, male part. Simon says, male part. Whole thing together, male. You've totally blown my mind with how good you are at this. We're going to look at our exit slip today, okay? We'll get another chance to play Simon Says as a review, but we've played the parts, we've played the function of Simon Says, so we're gonna look at our exit slip. I'm looking to see, can you write about and tell me in words about the parts of the flower and their function, okay? And randomly, you're just gonna reach into the bag and you're going to choose out a question. You may have the same question as somebody else. You may not. Yeah. Yep, all of your materials can go right back into the bag. These are for you. Like I said, today was only really our second day looking at the parts of the flower and the functions, so I don't expect you to really know them perfect, although you really did an awesome job with the Simon Says.
Thank you. We're your students.
What can I say? So you're going to hang on to these. We'll use these again during another lesson. We'll play again because it's super fun. All right, so you're going to reach in, you're going to pull out, and on there is your I can statement. I can identify the parts of the flower and their functions. There's a spot for your name, and there's one question that may have multiple parts to it. You're simply going to answer the question. When you think it's perfect, you're going to turn it into me, and then you're welcome to exit the class because our time is just about up. Sound good? Yes. All right. Reach in. Try your best to do it without looking at your reference sheet, that diagram that you use. Try and see if you can pull it from your memory, because again, this is not a quiz. This is not graded. It's just trying to see how close are we to reaching our goal. How close are we to hitting that target? All right, thanks, Joe, for coming back and sitting with me to talk about kind of how it went yesterday.
So how
or
did
today.
it go? How did it go today?
Actually, it went really well. They had pulled a lot from their background knowledge. They
Okay.
were able to talk a lot about that one lesson that we had done together. So I was really impressed. You definitely saw that in the beginning we were still kind of shaky, but by the end they were firing things off and doing awesome.
Okay.
So I was really impressed. There was definitely progress made towards hitting that target for sure.
And you used, what did you use for your formative assessment while the game was going on?
Well, while we were doing the game part, I had this checklist and it just had each student's name
Okay.
and then the parts of the flower that I wanted to make sure I hit. And so we played one game where it was the parts and then one game where we talked about the functions.
Okay.
And I kind of made myself this little key because with Simon Says, sometimes you go out based on listening skills and
Right.
not so much, I don't know, the flower skills. So I had students that went out for the Simon Says purposes,
Okay.
but they
Not for the flower
continued to play while they were seated and were still nailing them. So, and you know, that's all I really wanted to see. And then at one point, a student was out early on and then did well but confused or was unable to answer something while seated again, so I kind of made a different mark for that. And then through discussion, I realized the student had confused two parts, so I kind of just had to write it in a quick note. And I just did that part afterwards.
How do you think this
observed.
went? Would you change anything, or would you keep this the same?
It was a little tricky at first to kind of, I had first started by waiting, and then I would pick it up and check off or
Right.
X, and I found that that was too much, so I kind of had it with me as they're making their card choices, and so that seemed to be much more effective. So it was just a matter of kind of working that out, but once that happened, it was fine. It was
Okay.
great, and it really did kind of showcase, you know, who did well and who still needs some work on it. So
So
it was
what-
good, and if you notice, there are some students that just breezed through and did
Okay, just on all the
perfect.
parts they were able to
Yep,
hit
they
the target.
nailed them. Yep, hit the target. And then the ones with the check mark also did hit the target, but went out for Simon
Okay.
Says. And then the ones with the X's are the ones that went out because they had chosen the wrong part or the wrong function. And so there's very few, 1, 2, 3, 3 that went out for parts,
Yes,
and
only 2 in the function.
I think it might be, yep, and only 2 on the function. And so, you know, out of our group of 10, it really does, you know, show well. And again, as I continued to mark them as they were seated, and so each student really only received 1 error for,
So it seems
The
like they were
game.
successful.
they
This
were
is
really
successful.
successful.
How did it go with the exit slips that you used?
Well, that's another part that I wanted to look at is kind of can they translate this visual and spoken part into written? And really, all of them had great answers. I had a couple that were the same. So name a female part of the flower, tell what it does. Name 2 male. Photosynthesis, and I think there was another. Yep. This person got 1.
So
STEM.
these are all the different questions.
Mm-hmm.
Each now, did they chose them randomly, or were they able to pick them?
Nope, they
By looking at
reached
them.
right
Ra-
into
oh,
a
okay, so it's a
bag
random
and chose
bag.
out randomly. They're
Okay.
all pretty much on the same level, all of which goes towards the target. And so if we look at these 2 here, name a female part of the flower and tell what it does. The female part of the flower is called the pistil. Absolutely true. It's made up of the stigma and style. She was even to tell, you know, what 2 components
Okay.
make up that female part.
So a
And
little higher level.
yeah,
level
and
there.
be able to tell what it does. That collects the pollen.
Mm-hmm.
That style, the other part leads to the ovary, like even knows where
Right.
it's going.
Right.
So she nailed it. This student had the same one, and it says the female part of the flower is the pistil. True.
Mm-hmm.
It lets the pollen flow down to the ovary. So kind of different wording. She left out what 2 components make up the pistil, but she still is very aware that the pistil is the female part and that it does lead to the ovary. So again, really awesome responses.
Still on target.
This one named 2 male parts. So she's got anther and filament and tell what they do. This contains the pollen. This holds up the anther. Perfect.
Yep.
Name a part that is responsible for photosynthesis. Explain why. It helps making the food for the plant. This one, I guess, could be looked at as a little bit higher level thinking because they have to be able to relate to the photosynthesis, know what it does, know what components need to be there. But looking at his, it says the part of the plant that's responsible for making the food is the sepal. It helps make the food because it has chlorophyll, which is true. The chlorophyll is the chemical in it that will help with the food production. I would have liked to see a little bit more about how that chlorophyll is responsible for the
Right.
food. Like, can he make the connection as to why that chlorophyll is so important? But still on target for hitting the part of the flower and hitting the function. So that's more of a reference to photosynthesis than it is to that target.
Right.
But
So with these, where can you go from here? Where do you think you're going to go?
well, looking them over,
you-
after reading them all, there's really only one student that stands out to me as kind
hitting-
of,
Not hitting the target? There's only one?
yeah, somewhat. I mean, she's like right there,
Right.
right there. So I almost want to say, you know, if I could have just a side discussion with her about what she wrote, and kind of talk her through it, because again, it was the photosynthesis one, and kind of decide, is it a photosynthesis issue, or is it a part of the flower and the function
Right.
issue?
You go back to that diagram that they colored in, maybe? Go
Yeah,
back to that.
reference that. And she even has a past lesson on photosynthesis in her journal that I could refer to as well, and kind of just have a conference with her, and then go to my summative assessment, because
Right.
it really shows that through this game and through this exit slip that they've got it.
Yeah, it seems like it.
So do you
So
think
did
that
your
would
job.
make
I
sense?
think you're ready. I think they're ready.
I do too. And so if I can just kind of conference with her and, you know, find a good 10 minutes
Yeah.
with her, I think I can, you know,
Yeah, it seems like it was a good
catch her
lesson.
up to the rest of the gang.
Yeah. Good job.
All right. Well, thanks, Joe.
All right. Thank you.
All right, guys. So yesterday when we met, we got to play Simon Says and look at the parts and the functions of the flower, and you nailed it. You did awesome. After I looked through my observation chart, I saw that almost everybody got it perfect almost all the time. There was a couple little mistakes, and it seemed like by the end, everybody really had a good idea of what we were doing, almost hitting that target. Today we're going to take it one step further, a little bit harder, with a little bit less support from our picture and from our model, and see if we can get to that target, okay? So we're still working with, I can identify the parts of the flower and the functions. So it's still going to be the same idea, except today we're going to take away the visual part and the visual in your notebooks here. I bet you can do it, judging from yesterday. I went through the tickets to leave, and I was really impressed with what everybody said. I had some really great detailed responses. I saw tons of science vocabulary, all of those things that we're always looking for. It was awesome. So what I've got planned today is a matching game. So it's this part here, part 2. We're going to do a part and function match, and then we're going to get a chance to kind of discuss what you've matched up in your notebooks, and then we'll talk about what our next step is for the next time that we meet. Okay? Awesome. All right. So I'm going to start by handing this out so you can have an idea of what I'm talking about, and we'll do one together on the board before I have you go and do it on your own in your notebook, okay? And we're going to be cutting out and gluing, so I've got scissors and glue sticks for you as well. And we're just going to glue it into our science journals on the right side where we've got our response. So if you take a look at your worksheet in front of you, on the left side, you've got a whole list of what? Of the parts, right? On the left side is a whole list of the parts of the flower. And on the right side is a whole list of the what? The functions. But if you notice, your parts and your functions aren't matched up yet. That's going to be your job. You're going to have to go through, cut out your parts, cut out your functions, and arrange them on your desk so that they're matched up. Once you think they're matched up, you're going to talk to a neighbor. Just turn to somebody who you notice has also finished and discuss your results with your partner, saying, did you get this match? Did you get this match and this one? And then once you think you're set, you're going to glue it into the right side of your notebook across from that parts of the flower diagram. I'm going to ask that today you try and do this match without looking at your diagram. Oops. So you're just going to fold that section over so that you've got your blank space ready to glue down the matches. And you're really just going to pull from what you remember from the past couple times that we've met. And if you really think you're stuck, turn to your partner and ask for a little help, okay? So say our first part was the stem. So I would cut out stem and put it on the left side of my desk or on the paper, arranged it without gluing it until we're sure. And then I'm going to look for a function that says what? What might the stem function say?
Oh, maybe it's the backbone of the flower folds up the plant.
Sure, backbone of, like a backbone. Holds up the flower. For support. So you would scan through your list of functions on the right side and see if you could find that match. Once you get it, you cut it out and kind of line them up in your notebook so that you know you found a match, and then continue going through with your parts and finding that function match. Once you think you got it, you talk to a neighbor. It's okay. You talk to a neighbor and then glue it down when you think you've got the match. I'm going to be walking around. Feel free to raise your hand, ask questions, clear up any confusion that you still have. And then once I've noticed that everybody's all set, glued down, we're going to discuss what you came up with. Sound good? All right, so I'm going to get you some scissors, and you can go ahead and get started. Yesterday I noticed on this part, you were awesome at explaining the part that's responsible for photosynthesis. You said it was the sepal. You're absolutely right. So that was awesome. And you said because the sepal is the green part, which is true, and it helps the water come through the roots. But remember, the roots are way down in the plant under the ground, and the sepal's where?
The leaf.
Up by the leaves, right? And so that's the leaf part that's up top. And so this sentence here kind of doesn't fit with the beginning up here. So what could we say? That the sepal's responsible for photosynthesis because it's the green part. Why is that green part so important?
Because it helps to make the sugar and stuff.
Right, it's part of the food making process. So the roots, it's a whole other part. So we don't want to say it's the roots that bring in, the roots do bring in the water, but that's not why the sepal's so important. The sepal's important because of that green part, because it's going to attract the sunlight and start it on that food making process, right? So I just wanted to make sure you were clear with that today before you move on to this step. Okay? Got it? Awesome. Thank you. Who thinks they already found a match? You already got a match? Got a match? Awesome. Is it all coming back to you from yesterday? Yeah. One. So you haven't found that match yet, no? This is a smart little way to do it. I like that. Good setup. Awesome. You're getting it. Good. You're doing it. Base of the anther. It means base is like the bottom part. So the anther's on the top part. What holds it up? What looks like the stem of it? I think it's going to be the stem of the anther. This is a part, so we'll leave that on. Oh, you are looking for a part.
The style is for the top of the pistil.
Anther. Is this a boy part or a girl part? The anther.
part.
Boy part. So we need another boy
hold
part.
on.
Very good. You got it. Awesome.
The stigma. Is it the one that
Stigma. Think about stigma. Remember our little, what part is that?
sticky part?
Yeah, there you go. Think about it as the sepal, the green part. Think about what does your sepal look like? Sometimes we talk about the sepal and we don't say sepal. Sometimes we talk about it a different way. It looks like something else. Or a term that we would use every day.
The style protects the pollen.
This one says produces the pollen, so that means to make the pollen. What part makes the pollen? Yeah, excellent. So I'd cut those and put those as a match. And then kind of see what you're left with. Maybe process of elimination will help. You guys think you got it? And you agree on what you did?
Yeah.
Let's see. Petal tracks color. Awesome.
I actually did exactly what you did the other day, stay men.
You did? You thought of that? Stay men, male. Sticky, stigma. Girls have style. Green part. Ovule. Antler. Filament. Ovary. Perfect. You guys, awesome. So while you're gluing, just a quick show of thumbs. How do you feel about hitting this target today? Show of thumbs. I like it, and I got honest answers too, I think. Awesome. I agree. So this is the next and final stage kind of thing. Do you think that you could use the words in the word bank, match it up? You don't even have to look at that. And also write the function below it. You think you can do it? Give yourself a try. Awesome. So these are set for you, right? I'll take those back. So I'm going to tell you the same thing. See if you can try using the word bank, fill in all of the parts, and then underneath write the function. This is what our quiz is going to be like next week. Does it have to be what? No, wherever it fits, it doesn't matter. So it's kind of like a pre-quiz. Do you think you're ready for the real one? I'm going to ask that anybody that is challenging themselves right now with that next step, if you could just slide it to the side for right now. We're going to go back and move on to number 3 and discuss the results, kind of discuss what you've come up with. So if you could flip back open your notebook, if I had you close it, and we're going to look at the matches that you made. And I'll pull out our visual for this one so that we can keep making that connection there. So let's start. I'm going to go down my parts list just so I don't forget any. So you're going to have to search it. If you've got it in your notebook, check it off that it was a match so that you know in this journal this is an accurate study guide for you, okay? A good set of notes to go back to. All right, so we're looking at our petal first. Who's got a match for the petal? What did you put, Shelby?
I put attracts insects with the color.
Attracts insect with the color. Everybody got it? Awesome. How about our sepal next? You guys did super. Did you feel good about that? Yes. That you've really hit that target? Definitely.
I think I will ace my quiz because I think I did good on this. I was not looking.
Without even looking. So today, our goal was to get as close to hitting this target as we can. If we made a target with our bullseye, right, in the middle, and I want to get right there, I'd say that all of us are like right here. Some of us are already directly on target. And so our next step, what we're going to be looking at here, what's next is really actually hitting that target, each and every one of us. So you're going to get a chance to study this over the weekend. We'll do a quick review again on Monday during our science time, and then I'm going to give you a quiz which is going to look just like this. You're going to get a blank part of the flower with your word bank below. You're going to be asked to fill it in with the part and the function. So you're gonna write in the function of the plant, okay? And then I'm gonna give you one open response question to write about that would be on the back. And that's gonna be our graded piece of work to show that we really have met this target. Sound good?
Yeah.
For the quiz, yep.
I thought it was right now.
No, nope, not right now. You get a couple more days to kind of use the information that you got today. I was really impressed with how well you did matching these up. It's a lot to remember. It's a lot of new vocabulary. It's a lot of science terminology and kind of thinking about a flower in a really different way than we're used to. So you did excellent. I'm really impressed.
I didn't feel that so good, but now I feel like I got it.
Now you feel like you got it? That's the whole goal. Perfect. Sounds good. The formative assessment process has really helped me know what my students know by being able to have kind of a building block and scaffolding for the students. I can start them at kind of a basic level and slowly progress them through to a more advanced level to hit that target. Yesterday when we met, we got to play Simon Says and look at the parts and the functions of the flower, and you nailed it. And each time I see them at this different level, I have visible growth from where they started to where they've ended, and total reassurance that they really have hit that target. Everybody really had a good idea of what we were doing, almost hitting that target. I have a very diverse population in my class, and so using formative assessment is key to the success of the students. I have a range of students at academic levels, at language levels, cultural and religious backgrounds that sometimes play into the classroom. So it's really important that I have the ability to vary my assessment, vary the level of the assessment so that I can see the growth in each child and their differences and kind of work with those differences using the formative assessment. Because I use all different forms of assessments like my observations, conferences with the students one-on-one, just small discussions with them, exit slips, thumbs up, all the different types of formative assessment that I do use on a regular basis in the classroom. My ability to give them feedback is so much more in-depth, so much more focused, and really can directly relate to the target, and I can kind of get them to grow quicker, it almost seems, because they're getting this descriptive feedback from me. Working with Joe has been awesome for, you know, kind of building in that formative assessment. He had many of my students from the previous year, and so he has a great knowledge base of my students. He also has gone through the same training that I have, and so just being able to kind of work with him, and he understands the formative assessment process and really agrees with me that it shows the growth in the students. So being able to talk to him about it, I just get tons more ideas of what to do and a little bit more reassurance on where to go with things. Formative assessment has spread like wildfire in our school. It's so easily adaptable to you know, any environment, and I feel like my class in particular really speaks to that. I team teach with 2 other teachers, and we share a large group of students, again, all at varying backgrounds, academic abilities, language abilities, and it's funny because she, the team teacher, has not had the training, but would never start a lesson without a target up, and never kind of talk to a student or even send back work to a student without having some form of descriptive feedback involved. And it's funny because, you know, having myself as a teacher and her as a teacher, the students expect it from all of us. And so if for any reason one of us forgot to maybe put up the target or even speak to the target in the beginning of the lesson, they would say, hey, what about the target? We need to know what we're working towards. Or you didn't write on here why I got this wrong. And they'd ask for this feedback now, and they look for it on their papers. Well, what target am I looking towards here if we ever forgot it for any reason? So they expect it now, and kind of, and in turn, spreads to the rest of the school as well. My students are so much more involved in their assessment process and reaching the targets. There are times when we're transitioning from one lesson to another, and a student says, I've got everything out. Can I write the target on the board? I can. What are we doing today? And we'll really ask to be involved in that piece of it. At the end, they might even ask, like, are you going to check in with us and see how we're doing? Like, I give it a thumbs up, or we'll kind of go ahead and give these assessments to us ahead of time before we even ask for it. So they really are involved. Again, they look for it on their returned assignments. They look for any sort of descriptive feedback and really want to know why. I feel like they're more invested in their final products because of it. They're looking for that feedback. The students are self-assessors of their own learning, where you could see in the lesson that I did with the students, kind of giving them that challenge. They want to see if they can do it on their own. They want to see if they can, hit that target without any sort of support, if they're ready to say that they've hit the bullseye or got that target. And so they've even created ways of their own. I've had kids come in saying, I made flashcards last night and I was able to go through each stage of whatever, or in math today, I made up my own problem and I was able to solve it. And so they really are kind of building in, challenging themselves through it and assessing themselves, see how far they're going to get to that target. You guys think you got it? And you agree on what you did? Yeah. Let's see. In our class, we're constantly having students paired up with one another. Again, because of our team teaching style, we have lots of small groups. And so the students have ample opportunity to talk to one another. And they're really good now at asking kind of probing questions from one another. We're at the age where we ask students to buddy up and kind of be responsible for their work. And there's times when the students, in younger grades, you tend to see like, no, this is wrong, you do it this way, here's the answer. And here in 5th grade, we try and encourage, don't give them the answer, kind of help them through it. And so you'll see these kids kind of using the same sort of assessments we would with each other. Well, like, would you give it a thumbs up about that? Or, how would you describe this part of the plant or something? They come up with these probing questions and kind of become the teachers to help the other students self-assess themselves.